Lonely Monk Productions. Welcome to Too Old, Too New, the music discovery podcast that brings you something old, something new, something Nate, something Bruce. I'm Nate Runkle, host of the Yo That's My Jawn podcast, and with me, as always, is my good friend Bruce Warren of WXPN.
Yo.
The premise of this show is simple. Each week, we bring you two songs apiece. One new song that has been metaphorically spinning our turntable platters, and one old song that we believe still absolutely matters. But this week we got another guest for you, and so it's almost like three old, three new. We are joined by Dan Drago of the 25 O'Clock podcast. Dan, what is up, my friend?
Good day to all. Three old. That is correct. That is. We can just end it right there. Welcome to the three old guy podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, but Dan, you bring the average age down by at least a decade, probably. Right?
How old do you think I am, Bruce?
You're a young bull, man. You're a young bull. Oh,
Close,
good.
Close.
Oh, good.
I think I got like 3 years on you, something like that.
Something like that.
Something
you know
close.
what?
We're
So
there.
you can spending years in a touring van with bands can pack some more years onto you than you think sometimes. But I'm here. It's fun when I'm in a room where I'm like, oh, he's the young one. I'm like, oh, really?
It is great. It is a great feeling. So for the listeners, if you're not familiar, Dan hosts the 25 O'Clock podcast, which is Philly's longest running music podcast. He thinks.
We think.
We believe.
Yeah.
I want to put that tag in there. We believe. Let's start to believe in ourselves, not just think
I
about
could change it
ourselves.
up. That could be fun. I seem to think so. Like, we could change it.
Make it a whole extra sentence. But Dan's podcast is celebrating 10 years this season,
Yep.
Which is beyond phenomenal. I mean, not just the longevity, but the quality has not dropped at all and continues to just grow exponentially.
Yeah. 10 years of anything is impressive. 10 years of a band, 10 years of any sort of creative pursuit. And when I arrived at it, or as I realized we were getting closer, I'm not normally one to stop and reflect or do any of that stuff. But like for this one, I was just like, no, this is worth it. Like you should stop for a second. It's like not everyone gets to do this. Like none of my bands ever lasted that long, any of that. I don't think I've ever even held a job for 10 years. But like for this, it was like, oh, you did it. And if you had asked me when I'd started, in 2014 or 2015, how long do you think this will go for? I don't think I would have had an answer. I think I just would have been like, I don't know. And so for the first, my advice for anyone who wants longevity in a creative project is like, for at least the first 2 or 3 years, just put your head down and do not pay any attention to how much time is going by.
For sure. Well, so we when we have a guest, what we like to do is Bruce and I will split up our new and old to keep it on brand, to keep it 2 new songs, 2 old songs, because what are we? But consistent. Even though we weren't here last week, so I guess we aren't that consistent, but we were close enough to consistent.
That's podcast consistent is what that is.
Before we get into it, Bruce, what's up, friend? I haven't seen you in a little bit here.
Yeah, well, we're coming off of here at WXBN. We're coming off a membership drive, so I kind of usually fall into a black hole during those times. But we're almost over, and last night was the first night of the Philly Music Fest, and I've been out and about, just have very little wiggle room these days, but I'm breathing out today, so that's a good thing.
I gotta say, you're such a busy dude that I'm impressed that we've been as consistent as we have been.
Yeah.
Self-included. Like I'm surprised with it helps that we keep these micro, but that we've been able to keep it going. Look at us.
You got to give the people what they want, right?
That's right.
So what can I tell you, man? Hey, Dan, I think it's really interesting what you said about the creative thing and like how you like jump in and you keep your head down. Because I find that with a lot of creatives, that's sort of the way it goes. And it takes a while, to sort of build it up, But I was reading something really interesting this morning. This is aligned with what we're talking about. This is a really fascinating fact. Since 1982, You talk about work. We're talking about work we do, right? Yeah. The average tenure that somebody has, that Americans have with their employers, has dropped significantly since 1982. And right now, the average length of time a person spends with a company, U.S. adults aged 25 years and older, is just under 4 years. And it used to be, on the average, people would spend at least 10 years with an employer.
Oh,
that's kind of mind-blowing, actually.
No, I'll buy that. I mean, my father retired last year at a company that he was at since I was 7 or 8 years old. Mm-hmm. So, or I think of guys like my grandfather who, worked on the railroads in New England for his entire career. My other grandfather was a photochemist for God knows how long. Yeah, back in the day, you got a job and you stuck with it.
No,
now,
exactly.
But I don't think that means that those of us now are. I don't think that means we're flighty or anything like that. I just think I think it's a very different landscape now. I think the disappearance of pensions probably had a lot to do with that.
That is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress, but it's all coming back to here we are. We're doing our work.
Yeah.
It's the work of the music space, right? The music ecosystem. So here we are. Anyway,
that's right, and the spirit of music discovery. So
that's right.
I always like to let our guests go first. So Dan, why don't you give your old pick, what you brought with us?
Okay, so this was fun. I procrastinated on this until this morning, and I was like, oh crap, I have to tell him what I'm doing. And what I love about this show is that it's. As a listener, you could get anything from anywhere. It's such a wide net. When it comes to selecting, that's the worst possible situation that I could be in with such a wide net. So Nate helped me out this morning. He said, well, Bruce and I are going Philly today. I said, okay, good. It's Philly Music Fest week. Philly, that helps. And I started to think about myself, and I'm like, all right, when I first got to this city in around 2003, 2004, a young Dan, feeling his way through the music scene, meeting people, figuring out who were the bands, where we were playing, and one of the first distinctly Philly bands I ever discovered was a band called Man Man. And you have to remember the sort of the landscape around 04, 05, still a lot of guitar rock and things like that. And the first time I heard Man Man, it was piano led, and the vocals were absolutely bonkers. And the arrangements were absolutely insane. It sounded like an unhinged Captain Beefheart session. And I was writing for a publication, a web publication. Kids, we used to have web publications back in the day. They were called blogs, and they were outstanding.
That's right.
And it was called Aural Minority. It was started by a buddy of mine in college up in Western New York, a guy named Jeremiah Griffey. And I was sort of his East Coast guy. So, stuff would come through Philly, and I would, go shoot it with my horrible point-and-shoot camera, and I'd write about it, and I'd review records. And so he handed me this record once called Six Demon Bag by the band Man Man. It was their second record, and it blew me away. And I was like, these guys are from Philly. I got to go find these guys. I remember going to see them in some weird art space on, Cherry Street. It was the name of the space was the address. It was that kind of deal. It was up 3 or 4 floors. The whole time I'm there, I'm like, there's no way there's a show here. And then, eventually you get up to the floor and you walk in, it's like, oh, there's a stage, there's lights, there's PA, and a band came out. But the song I picked was Spider Cider from Man Man's 2005 record, Six Demon Bag, which is a record that I'll still put on at least once or twice a year. I think it's a truly phenomenal record in general, an amazing Philly record back when we maybe weren't getting all the attention that we get now in Philadelphia. And the stuff that was out there was super weird.
All right, let's listen to a little Spider Cider by Man Man.
Drink yourself sideways to try to rub me. Boy.
So
what
weird.
what a great song. I haven't heard this album in years.
I threw it back on this morning because I was just like, oh yeah, this blew my hair back the first time I heard it.
Yeah, totally. Remember they used to set up in the round back in the day?
Yep.
Like, yeah, it was so. I used to love seeing them back in the early days. I haven't seen them in a while. They don't really tour too often. But you know what other song I freaking love on this record? The Boombox song.
Van Helsing Boombox.
Van
Yeah,
Helsing
yeah.
Boombox. That and Black Mission Goggles, man.
Yeah.
This record, woo! And you're so right about the Beefheart comparisons, but still unique on their own terms. You know?
Absolutely. And there, talk about a band that grew too. Like you very much could have just hung out in that mode for a
Right.
while, and they the record before that and that one were kind of in that mode, and then they changed, they adjusted, members of the band changed and all that, but like they're still, I guess they're still technically around. Like you said, they don't tour much anymore,
Yeah.
but like I'll see the name pop up every once in a while.
Yeah.
Man, if you're listening, Philly Music Fest 2025.
Yeah,
man.
come on.
They were one of my favorite Exponential Music Festival Marina stage performances. What was that, like 3-4 years? No, I guess 4 years.
That
ago
was a long time. It was longer than that.
Yeah.
It was pre-pandemic.
16 maybe 17.
Wow.
I don't know. But yeah, that was they're
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right, Bruce, what do you got for an old pick?
Oh man, I got a classic R&B song. Came out in '71 by the Philly group Brenda and the Tabulations. And I think, I was familiar with this song from growing up, obviously. But the other day, our morning show host, Kristen Curtis, played it on the radio. And I was driving to work, and I was like, this might be one of the most perfect songs ever. Like, perfect R&B, classic R&B songs ever. I didn't realize this until I did a little research on it, but it was co-written by Mr. Hustle, Van McCoy. Right? You ever do the hustle? Dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun,
It's a
dun, dun,
dance
dun.
I still bust out regularly.
Do you
just
really?
because it's
Well,
so-
no, I'm not surprised by that, Nate. Quite honestly. So the reason why I was doing some research on it was because Kristen played it, and afterwards she came back, she backsold it, and she said, I wonder why they chose the name Tabulations. So I heard her say that on the air. When I got to work, I kind of looked it up. The reason why Brenda Payton was the lead singer's name, they needed a name for the band, and they opened up a dictionary. She opened up the dictionary, and the first word she randomly landed on was the word tabulate. And she said, we're going to call ourselves Brenda and the Tabulations. And then I started reading all about the song. Anyway, beautiful song, incredible. Here you go. Right on the tip of my tongue.
Now my heartless baby calls. I had the chance to make you mine, but I wasted too much time and let your love slip away. It was right on the tip of my tongue, and I forgot to say I love you. It was right.
Just perfect.
Great
Every-
bass line. Really,
Great bass line.
I'm
Really
glad, I'm glad
nimble.
you called that out because we talked about it like a few weeks ago. But 70s, the production on 70s bass is just my favorite thing in the world. And like if you have a perfect bass line with that 70s production, like there's no not moving to it. Like it's like a warm bath to me.
Yeah. And the other really amazing thing about this song, and you should listen to the whole song, is that Brenda does this like spoken word thing during the coda that just tears at your heart. It's unbelievable. Everything about this song you feel like 100 times. So
That's such a great trope of a certain era of soul and R&B.
Yeah.
Was like it's not a bridge, it's not a solo, it's the let me talk to you.
exactly.
And I love the let me talk to you part. I can't remember what record I was listening to. It might have been I can't remember what it was, but the talking part was like nearly half the song. And that's always fun when you get a soul song that's like, and half the song I will talk to you. But it's a bring it back. songwriters out there, bring back the talking bridge.
Yeah.
My favorite part about it is like when done right, and it leads right into like the vocal cue of the next the next verse or the chorus. Like it's a brilliant songwriting choice, and just a beautiful song. So this week we've mentioned is the Philly Music Fest, and Saturday. I wanted to call out, since we have Dan here, is Inside Hustle, which is an incredible music industry networking event put on by the Philly Music Fest in coordination with WXPN at Rec Philly in the city. And it's a free event. So I just want to put this out here for anybody who is into music in the Philly area, or wants to get into the music industry somehow, or wants to touch music on a more kind of personal level. Jump up on phillymusicfest.com/inside hustle. There's still tickets available. This year, somebody had the bright genius idea of adding a podcast table. And so myself and Dan and our pal Phil from Your Next Favorite Band will be at the podcast table. Bruce will be there. Bruce, are you emceeing again? Are you the hostess with the mostest?
I'm emceeing again, and I'm going to do a conversation with Devin Gilfillian and his manager / bandmate, producer, drummer Jawn, sort of about their road, from Philly from Philly to Nashville. And Devin was once an unsigned independent artist, and I've known their entire journey from start to the moment we're in, and they've had to make some very big decisions along the way. And when you meet artists, they have so many questions, like, how do I do this? When do I need a manager? How do I get my record played on the radio? I need a lawyer. Like, when do I, where do I go to record? They have all these questions, and it's a thing that Greg and Greg Seltzer from the Philly Music Fest started. I guess when PMF started, and after a couple of years, I said to him, dude, we got to do 2 of these a year.
Yeah.
And because the thirst was, the hunger was there. As the Philly, as you guys know, because you're like right in the middle of the Philly music scene. And there's tons that it's just, the scene's grown, and the demand for information has grown, and the ecosystem has grown. And this is a great way to sort of network and sort of meet people and get some of your questions answered. So we're doing 2 a year now, and there's a couple of managers that are going to be there. We got folks from local studios. So it's a great experience. It's a great experience.
I'm always blown away by how many people show up, how many different kinds of artists too. And my favorite thing about Inside Hustle, aside from that, like, I get to see everyone I haven't seen in a long time all in one room, is watching out of the corner of my eye, like, oh, those two people start talking together, and then like 4 months later, they'll be like, and those two people are cutting a single together, and you're just like, and you think for a second, like, I wonder if that was the first time those two people ever met. I remember we did Inside Hustle one year downstairs at World Cafe, and I was talking to Philadelphia singer-songwriter Sophie Corin, who's a good friend, and Greg Seltzer walks by right then, and Greg's a friend as well. And I just stop for a second and go, Sophie, have you met Greg? Greg met Sophie. These are the two, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I got to go. And the next year, Sophie was on the bill. No, I'm not saying that's exactly why that happened, but I don't think those two had ever met until that moment. And that's like the joy of Inside Hustle. It's like, hey, do you two know each other? No? All right, cool. Here you are. I got to go.
Yeah.
And I used to say in previous years before I had a table, I go, I'm just a professional, like a matchmaker right here.
That's the cool thing about the local scene. It wasn't. I've been in the local scene 25, 30 years, and it hasn't always been like that.
No, you're absolutely correct.
And we like to be as welcoming to all. We're all Philly. It doesn't matter if you're a singer-songwriter, if you're an indie rocker, or whatever. You could be a polka artist. I don't give a shit. Like, we're here. I mean, if you're a musician, you all have the same questions regardless of what genre you play, right? So this is where we try to bring people together. So there you go.
It's
very
beautiful.
excited.
Absolutely beautiful. And
Yeah.
like I said, tickets still available if you want to show up. They're free. PhillyMusicFest.com/Inside Hustle. Get on it. The other thing about the Philly Music Fest that I have to call attention to, especially since you're here, is Dan, you put together a compilation and the proceeds are going to the Philly Music Fest. Tell everybody a little bit about the comp you put out.
Sure. So one of the most fun things about 25 o'clock, aside from the long-form conversation that you get to have with our artists that you normally would probably never hear such a long-form conversation with, like, example this week, Josh Ostrander, Mondo Cosmo. I don't know if I've ever heard him talk for as long as I have him on the show, and it was a great conversation. But aside from that, when I have people in studio, I always ask them, hey, do you want to play one? And we just set a couple mics up, like literally right over my shoulder from where I am right now. And it's a very simple recording, very intimate, very up close. And I've been, collecting these performances for 10 years and playing them on the show. And I've always wanted to, like, package them together as like a record, so you could listen to them, like tracks. So I finally did it with the 10-year approaching. That was something that I kind of put in my head a bunch of months ago and said, like, okay, you're going to do that. And then as I realized when I was going to drop it, in the fall, I'm like, well, this is perfect with Philly Music Fest. Also, like, this music is not my own. It belongs to all the people that made it here on the program. So I was like, well, I sure as heck can't take any money for this in any way. Like, that would be, I wouldn't feel right about that. So all the money, I'm not even talking about profits, like all the money that this thing makes is going to Philly Music Fest. I consider whatever small amount that it costs me to put it together, that's my donation.
Right.
As well. But 10 tracks, 10 different performances that happened right here on the show over the course of many years. Some songs that are on that record have gone on to be recorded or had been recorded already on other people's records, and there are full studio versions of it. And some songs, I'll give you an example. The Lunar Year plays a song called Twins in a Call, and that record, that song still hasn't been recorded. According to Katie on our last conversation, they're working on it on their next record. And then some stuff is recorded like a week after it was written. Ross Bellenwau's song, A Perfect Parade, was written like maybe a couple weeks before he sat down with me, and that ended up on his next record that came out in 2020. So it's not always just like come in and play the single. I just tell him, I'm like, you play whatever song you want. My friend Sophia once came in and played a Drive By Truckers cover, and I was like, cool, if this is how you feel, then this is how we're doing it. But it's 10 tracks, all very different bands, all very intimate recordings, just a couple of mics, and I had a blast putting it together. Let me tell you, it's tough to go through 10 years of recordings and pick 10, which is why it's called Wanna Play a Song Live on 25 O'Clock Volume 1. Volume 1 implying perhaps a Volume 2 or 3 or 4. So
Yeah.
Bruce, when I was on the show, at no point did Dan ask me if I wanted to play a song. I just wanted to put that out.
I think that was intentional, Nate. I hate to say it.
I don't play a song on the show. No, it's a lie. A lot of the interstitial music that I've worked into the show over the last couple of years has been instrumental music that I've been writing just right where I'm sitting, right here. I got tired of using the same chopped up bits of the Dukes of the Stratosphere song. So I was like, what if I played keyboard badly and threw it behind talking?
So how do people get this?
I put it out exclusively on Bandcamp. I didn't want to deal with the streamers on this again, because my whole point here is I want to raise money.
Right.
And Bandcamp, as far as as for all the things that I've used out there in the world digitally, it has the most transparent, best bang for buck for artists. Every major media company has issues, and I certainly have things that I wish that company did a little differently. But overall, if you're an artist out there and you want to get your stuff into the hands of people, especially whole records, like this whole thing I like is a compilation. Like, you can get singles if you want. If you just want to buy 1 or 2 tracks, you are welcome to. But I like it as a whole piece. I track listed it as like I was track listing an album, thinking like, here are 10 songs. It's going to take you from this mood to this mood and all that.
Right.
But yeah, exclusively on Bandcamp. And like I said, all the money that I make off this goes to Philly Music Fest charitable giving. I'm not funding Philly Music Fest. No one funds Philly Music Fest. And in the end, all the money they make goes to all the great music charities, music education charities in the city, Beyond the Bars, Rock to the Future, Play on Philly, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Plus all the artist microgrants that they've done over the years, especially during the pandemic. That was make or break for a lot of artists right there. Just a little bit of cash to just help get you through.
Right.
So I just wanted to contribute in whatever way I could, and I thought, I'm sitting on all this cool material. What if I put it out? It was a blast. When it came together, I looked at the art and everything, and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't made a record since 2013.
Right.
Like as an artist or with other artists. So to see a record that I put together, I was like, oh. You can still get that warm feeling in your soul when you put something together like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Great.
So you brought one for your new track. Why don't you tell everybody about what you got here?
Sure. This kicks off the compilation. This is a solo acoustic performance by a singer-songwriter named Bright Kelly. This is a song called Shake Till the Fever's Gone. It was... The way you hear it on the record is how he played it to my face. It was amazing. Bright's an amazing performer, a great writer. And if you go back and listen to that episode, which you can find at 25clockpod.com or anywhere you get your podcasts, he tells the story about how he threw this one out there into the world. And it was the one that got the most attention and kind of reopened some doors to him that he, kind of during the pandemic, that he thought maybe were closed. So it's got every song has a story, and that's his, and he can tell it better than I can. But it's a beautiful song. I still get it stuck in my head to this day. So Bright Kelly's "Shake Till the Fever's Gone."
Sepia lens, the nights at the barcade with all of our friends. You held my hand walking back at the 4th of July. Summer night, my soul for a sign. I'll get you back if I go back in time. Summer days, I've tried to move on. Now I just shake till the fever is gone. Now I just shake till the fever's gone.
Yeah.
Great one. Great.
That's what it's, and I always tell people, I'm like, and that's what it sounded like. And it's something I love about making these recordings. I love records. I love studios. I love playing with gear. I mean, if we zoomed out here, you'd see all kinds of weird stuff behind me. But I love a mic on a guitar and a mic on a voice, and just like, whatever imperfections happening, the chair creaks, someone misses a little bit on the thing, it doesn't matter, because the whole it's the song, it's the performance, it's the moment. And props to Bright, man. He just opened up for Judah and the Lion at the Fillmore last weekend.
That's a big gig.
I know, it was huge.
Yeah.
And Taka, I mean, he's a guy, he's been out there, he's been killing it. He's always working, and I love it when I see people like that get these opportunities. And it's one night, you're on stage for as an opening act, maybe 25, 30 minutes, but like that can sustain you. And I'm not talking about, finances or anything. That can just sustain your artistic soul for a while, getting moments like that. So props to Bright, and just big thanks to every artist who gave me the nod to let them use their recordings, because when we did these originally, that was never the plan. So you have to go back to people later and go, listen to it again, tell me if you're cool with this. But I'm always happy with every performance that happens on this show, and I'm happy with every performance on the compilation, and I'm happy with the money that it's making, that I'm going to be able to give to Philly Music Fest's charitable giving.
That's
I'm
awesome.
super happy about
Well,
that.
congratulations, man. Beautiful.
Thank you, Bruce.
Beautiful stuff. Love it.
All right. And you can find that 25o'clock.bandcamp.com. Link will be in the show notes, of course. For my new, we've been doing here, we've been keeping it Philly. This was a band that a press release came through in my email box from somebody, and I was like, a Philly band? Oh, I'm from Philly, and so I hit play and did not expect to lose myself in this entire album. The band is the Bad Ups, and the album is Life of Sin. It's a phenomenal, and look, I know what you guys are thinking. Nate, you just love them because they have a song called Stuttering Jawn. Not true.
Oh.
It's not just the Jawn connection, but it helps. But anyway, the song I picked today is "Future Sucks" by the Bad Ops, and let's listen to a little bit of that right now.
It's alright with you, I'll die. And we lost ourselves as we danced to a different drum. And we lost ourselves, dum, 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 dum. And we lost ourselves as we danced to a different beat. And we lost ourselves, free, free, free. Come on, get in the car. Gonna drive you so.
It brings out the skate punk in me, something fierce. I mean, like that. They said they were going for the Fat Wreck Epitaph kind of vibe, and fuck if they didn't nail it.
That bass, talking about two songs have been picked today where each time I heard the bass, and full disclosure, I have been known as a guy who plays the bass from time to time. That like hard chunking picked bass right there, I was just like, oh, I go, that's a time and a place, and there's no lie, music can take you places, and that took me back to being like 16 years old, sitting in the band hallway, and someone like sticking headphones on my ears and be like, listen to this band called Rancid.
Exactly.
And me being like,
exactly.
oh, and like it's a moment in time, and I love that. Yeah, I imagine these guys are younger than we are. I love that, for lack of a better term, the kids are still embracing like that kind of just confessional, hard on your sleeve, but like hard rock, punk rock, a little snotty, a little bit of attitude, but still a whole lot of heart. Wow, I'm gonna check out the rest of their material right now. That was really cool.
Hell yeah, and I'm going to race you for them on the show.
It's
You guys, I love the competitive spirit, the friendly yet competitive spirit that you always bring to the conversation. I can't wait to see all three of you guys together on Saturday.
The funny
at
thing
Inside
about
Hustle.
me and Nate is that like we've told the story before. Like a couple years back, because there are only so many. We get fed stuff from the same sources, so
Sure.
we're getting the same PR emails, the same label emails, and there was like 2-3 episodes in a row, 2-3 weeks in a row where both weeks our guest was the same. I think it was like Don McCloskey and a couple others. And at some
Bannister
point,
effect.
yeah, and after the third one, I just texted Nate because I had his number. I said, "Hey, bud, I love that we both love the same stuff, and I love that we're dialing in on the stuff. Perhaps we need to start having some background conversations.
Yeah.
On what week are you doing this? What week? Okay, I'll do it that week. You can do it that week. And so a good example of that was Eliza Hardy Jones, keyboardist for War on Drugs, an amazing singer-songwriter and artist on her own. Was on Your Show, My Show, and Phil's Your Next Favorite Band show. And there is a text thread leading up to that of like, okay, I'll do this one. Okay, and then I'm doing it that week, and then Nate'll do it the week after that. I'm like, okay, good. This is the plan.
Yeah, it was like, I'll release on the single release. I'll release on the album release.
That's
release a
good.
week after.
That's
Yeah.
good.
But,
That's good.
Talking about, competition and scenes and stuff like that. I mean, like, yeah, it's fun, and we may josh each other in public about that. But, like, we're all in this for the same thing. And
Totally.
like for me, there is no, when I found out Nate was doing a show, or when he probably discovered my show, and never once I was like, oh, who's this guy think he is? I was just like, oh, cool, another one. Because it sort of validates you too. You're just like, all right, I'm not crazy. Like, or I'm just the right amount of crazy that someone else also wants to come in on this.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always, I may be older, but I always call Dan my podcast Big Bro.
Yeah.
Because that's how it feels. That's how it feels. Of course, all of these songs will be added to our playlist up on Spotify, also available, link in the show notes. As we said, Inside Hustle this Saturday. Tickets available, phillymusicfest.com/Inside Hustle. Dan's compilation, Want to Play a Song, live on 25 o'clock. Volume 1 is available at 25o'clock.bandcamp.com. I am getting that right. That is your
25o'clockpod.bandcamp.com.
Pod. Damn it.
It's just and it's in all my links in the socials and everything.
Yeah.
So go grab it, go get it. It's fun. Find the bands you like and discover new bands. And,
Yeah.
and open yourself up to the Philadelphia music world.
Heck yeah. And you can find me on the socials at Yo That's My Jawn. You can find Bruce at Some Velvet Blog. You can also hear Bruce every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And you can hear the Yo That's My Jawn podcast on Mondays. I got an episode right now with a director, Christy Jacobson, who worked on a film with Selena Gomez and Stacey Abrams called Louder, the soundtrack of change. And it is an awesome documentary about women protest music that isn't necessarily the kind of protest music you'd think. It's like when Linda Ronstadt did her Spanish-speaking album, stuff like that. You know, the kind of stuff of just artists being their genuine self and that being a defiant act of protest. So check that out. Check that the documentary out, too. It's really good. Bruce, Dan, guys.
Yep.
Yeah. Dan, thanks for joining us, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
Beautiful.
I really appreciate it.
Love it.
Hit the stop button. Too Old, Too New with Nate and Bruce is a Lonely Monk production, produced and hosted by Nate Runkle and Bruce Warren. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on your podcast provider of choice. If you have any music you think we should hear, or if you would just like to reach out to us, please feel free to email us at tooldtonewmusicpod@gmail.com. And as always, thanks, and we will catch you next time.
We the truth.